Okay, guys, let's just take a little bit of market recap, go through some of the pivots from the daily watch list. Netflix, I took a trade off Netflix right off the bell. As you can see here on this candle, gave a humongous spike to 1520.96. The pivot was around 15 520.96. I got long at about 520 and immediately this thing stalled out. I seen that there was no momentum behind it. It started back tracing. I got out of it, didn't lose much, pretty much broke even on it. And then it busted through the upper Bollinger Band here. I'm looking at the 5 minute chart just because this is an intraday for a scalping perspective here. Broke through the 5 day, 10 day, 20 day, so forth and so forth. But the strongest level of resistance here is always going to be my red line on any chart, whether that be the 5 minute, the hourly, the daily. It doesn't matter. The red line is the 50-day moving average. It's always going to show the most amount of strength and support. If a stock is strong, it's going to bounce off of that, regardless if it cracks through. Like on this candle here, you've seen it put in a wick where it cracked through, but immediately the bulls reclaimed that level, and then it's kind of been, riding a little bit, broke down a little bit through the 50-day moving average here. And then as soon as we crossed over the 50 and the 10-day moving average here, they've been slowly walking up Netflix for me, I still like it at 520. I guess the second entry on it now would be 520.96. We just crossed over the upper Bollinger Band here. It's going to run into a little bit of supply, which means it's going to have a little bit of chop at 518.59. A support area, stop loss, and or remount to buy this on a dip would be 516.42 if it continues to show strength. However, I like Netflix right now. There's a sneaky area here over this whole channel from this morning. If it does get over 518.57, which is a linear regression line, if it gets over 518.58, it could possibly retest the 520s. And then obviously a breakthrough of 520.96 is the big macro trade. There was a ton of call buying for weekly 520s as well as next week's 540s. So that's 40 points away. We seen what happened with Amazon once it cleared out the 50-day moving average, with Tesla, what it's done the last 2 days, Nvidia, so forth and so forth. Roku, as soon as these stocks start to reclaim big levels here, they generally tend to run. That's why I was a little bit disappointed that Netflix stalled out as soon as it cracked through that 520. I was expecting a much bigger push through there, but maybe it's going to be the second time around. So if I go back, if I look at another stock from the watch list, Fubu, I still like Fubu. Not really from a day trading perspective. Fubu for me is more of a swing trade idea. So as you can see, all of these lines here, these are all supply zones here. So it's got to clear out a lot of supply zones on an intraday level. But if I pull up the hourly chart here, I still like Fubu. Let me take off this trend line. I still like Fubu above 33.70, which is Tuesday's high. Put in a top here on this wick at 33.70. I think any break of 33.70 goes to 34.20. And I think over 34.20 is going to pay out those weekly and next week expiration 35. So I think it sees 35s pretty soon. We just have to continue to keep that on watch. BA Boeing, great move. Took a little bit of time to build, exploded right out of the gate. So if I go ahead here and pull up the hourly chart, the break on Boeing was going to be this 246.97. Pivot was going to be 247, just to give it enough space to go ahead and clear out. So as you can see here, right before market open at pre-market, it put in this candle here where it touched this channel here, which is the pivot channel of 247 almost to the T. And then right at, that second candle at the 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time candle, broke through that. So if I pull up the 5 minute chart here, if I go to 7 o'clock, this is where we broke out of the 247 channel here. So this is 650. We're at 246.54, 655, 7 o'clock exactly is when we broke through the 247. We put in a top, okay, above the pivot. Oh, that's a wrong trend line. We put in a top at 247.22, give or take some change. So the pivot was 247. The first initial candle on the 5 minute chart was 247.22. The next candle cracked above, sold off a little bit, came down and touched the rising support here, which is the 5 day on the 5-minute chart. And as soon as it passed through 247.22 again, would have been your second entry. Also 247.50s was the other area in the pivot that I was looking at, just because of this linear regression line here. So even though it passed through 247 even, it still needed to get above 247.50. The 247.22 was a little bit more of a riskier play. 247.50s was a little bit of a safer play here, just because it was going to clear out this supply zone here, this linear regression line. Same kind of deal here. As soon as it crossed 247.50s, 248s, you know, it's been riding all the way up here, put in a top of 249.37. So a good 2 points from the pivot right now. It looks like it is selling off a little bit, broke down below the 5 and the 10-day moving average here. So if it wants to back test and find a little bit of support, it's got heavy support here at the Bollinger Band, the 20-day and the 10-day moving average, and that is a price of 248.21 to 248 even on the 5-minute chart. So this is a scalping chart, scalping, you know, perspective, being that it's, you know, 5-minute chart. I really wouldn't swing anything overnight off of the 5-minute chart. I'd use the hourly or the daily. On the hourly chart on Boeing, a remount of 248.02, so I would let it crack through 248.02, and then as soon as it passes through again, that would be my entry, with a possibility of taking profits at 248.82, which is 82 cents. And then obviously once it breaks through 248.82, it's got more room to stretch to the upside here. 5-day on the hourly chart is 246.79, so that's 2 points away. You know, you don't want to be buying something way up here at 250 when support is all the way down here, 3 points down, because this thing could, you know, come up here and touch 249, 250, and then within 20-30 minutes later, it could be back here, back testing 248 and 246, and still be good, you know, and still be good. What else was on the watch list? Square. Really like Square. I want to start a swing position on Square right now. Square is trading at 246.47. Breakout on Square was, I said it needed to build a new base between 242, 243, 244, in that area. Just because of yesterday, it did pass the 240, topped out at around 241, 242. So it needed to start building above, you know, really 242. That's this trend line here. Same thing. Market opens, top ticked here at 248.89, and then immediately started to have some selling pressure. Lost this zone here underneath the linear regression line and the upper Bollinger Band here. Traded below, kind of rode this 5-day moving average here on the 1-hour chart, and then it's been grinding higher ever since yesterday. So just going back to Wednesday, that's kind of why I had that 242, 243, 244 area, just because yesterday this was the top. So, you know, looking at today's chart, from 5-6 o'clock, put in this massive candle all the way to 248, and has really never looked back. So even though it did have a little bit of selling pressure coming back, it did test support here at the upper BB, and it's every time it's tested so far, it's bounced. Tested so far, it's bounced, and we're 2 hours into the session. So I still like Square going higher, and the reason I like it going higher is just because if we pull up the daily chart here, let me take off some of these lines so it doesn't look so confusing. If I pull up some of these, this daily chart here, a break above 247, 248 has room to stretch to 261. There is no trees in the forest above 248, 249, realistically, ever since the breakout here at 240, 242. You might run into a little bit of chop here in this channel here, but these are, you know, very small candles here in the 250s, 253 area. I think the big trade is going to be to 261. Whether that happens this week or next week, it could potentially be a good swing trading opportunity. Let me just see what else I put on the watch list. Fubu, Airbnb still needs to build. Fisker, FSR still needs to build. It's Spice 4170. Let's take a look at what Spice is doing, or Space actually. Space still looks really good. I think a clear out of 4186. Get above this upper Bollinger Band here, has room to 49. So Space also a good swing trading opportunity. Bounce on Space is at 38.50, as well as 37.13. I think that would be the little bit more stronger base if it does want to backtrace a little bit of support. And then obviously you have heavy support here down at 34s, but I would not like to see it get all the way down to 34s. I'd like it to stay up here closer to the 38 or the 37 for a possible bounce. But right now, space looks good for the break on the upside. Let's see what the pivot was I put in exactly. 4170. So realistically, 4186 is the level, 4170 around that area here, just because, you know, 623 yesterday we put in this top here. So we really need to clear out this upper Bollinger Band supply. We really need to clear out yesterday's high. But yeah, space looks good for a possible swing. Again, this is not Tesla. This is not Amazon, Google, nothing like that. Space is not going to run 10, 20, $15 in a day. These smaller cap names, these stocks under $50, under $100, they're a little bit more slower moving, slower paced, a little bit less risk, in a sense that it's not going to give you a 5, 10, $8 candle like a stock like Tesla will, where you have to really, really be on top of your game with your entries and your exits and your stop losses, just because that can do some damage to your account very, very fast. Depending on your sizing, you know, space can give you a little bit of a hit, but it's not going to give you as much of a hit as a stock like Amazon or Tesla. So it's an easier stock to swing trade. Basically, what you're going to do, if you wanted to swing trade a stock like space or any small cap stock, you're going to use yesterday's lows as your absolute stop. That price is 38.77, which is also going to correlate perfectly here with the 5-day supply. So I might want to give you a little bit more room. Let's say 38.50, 38.40s. If it loses this 5-day moving average here and does not reclaim on the next hourly candle, that would be my exit. So somewhere in the mid 38s. So you're going to risk $1.50 on this trade for a potential upside of 49.90, which is going to be, you know, about 10 points. Whether it gets there or not, 2 points, 3 points, 4 points, 5 points, I'd be taking cash flow on the way up. So you definitely have a 3, 4, 5, 10 point reward to about $1.50 risk. So that's where I kind of put on my swing trades. I give myself the least amount of risk, but the most amount of reward for my buck if the trade does go in my favor and momentum continues to hold. Realistically, going back ever since 521, almost a month here, it's been grinding higher ever since it coming off this lower linear regression line here. So for me, space still looks really good for a potential swing. 50-day moving average is all the way down here at $26. So it's well above supply with a ton of support down below. Space looks good for a swing. Let's do one more really quick. Plug. Let's see what Plug did. I did not even look at Plug just because I was involved with my Tesla trade. Plug still looks good. As you can see here, it's got this long range of consolidation here. Macro level on the daily chart is still going to be that 33.47. Let's see what the exact pivot I put in. 34.50. 34.50. 34.50 is going to get over this white line. The white line on my chart is the upper BB band. As you can see here, 1, 2, 3 days, it broke above this channel here. It's ready to pop. It's ready to pop. It has first initial move to 36.48. $3 of potential upside. Absolute stop that I would use would be 32.50s, which is going to be all of this support areas down here, 32.50. So potentially you're risking $1 for a $2 to $3 upside. Not bad. So your risk to reward ratio, really good on Plug. Reward around $2 to $3, risking $1. So I mean, depending on you know, your risk appetite, some people like to risk a little bit more, some people like to trim and risk a little bit less. I mean, you can risk 50 cents on the trade, 25 cents on the trade, whatever it is that you prefer, whether you're playing shares or options. But I do think that Plug looks really good. Just let it build, stay patient. That's the main thing with all of these stocks. Just because the stock is green doesn't mean you just jump in. The moment you jump in is the moment that the stock top ticks, puts in a high wick, and then back traces. Let these levels, let the pivots confirm. Once the pivots confirm, let them put in a new high. And once they put in a new high, you want to be in on that second wave, that second cavalry with strength going through the pivot upside to the next potential area of supply. And that's where you want to be taking profits. So just a real quick An example, something like Space, we're looking at the 34 area, in that 34 and some change area. 34 area break here gives you room to 36. That's where I would be scaling out, taking profits. I would hold a runner. Next area where we could take some profits here is $38. I would start to trim more. And if the stock continues to be strong and you know, it's back testing supports and bouncing off, you know, hold a runner, because then you potentially have room all the way into the $44 areas. But let's say, for example, you take this at 34, it comes up here to, let's say, 36.12. It comes up here to 36.12, top ticks, shows a little bit of weakness, comes back down, test the upper Bollinger Band, comes back up again, does not quite make it to the highs, and then gets weak again. I would take profits. I would take profits, or I would cut my loss, because, you know, once a stock is going to confirm, it's going to confirm and it's going to go. So as soon as Space breaks out of this $34 area, I think that it's going to run 50 cents to $1 rather quickly. And then you want to be scaling out and taking profits along the way. If you're looking to swing this a lot longer, meaning more than overnight, more than a day trade, definitely know that once you get into these supply zones here, you're going to get a little bit of hiccups, a little bit of traffic, just because there's a lot of supply here and people are going to be selling stock. So once the stock gets to that supply, people are going to be selling stock. It's going to, you know, take a little bit of time for it to build over. As soon as it builds over the $37, $38 area, then obviously it has room here pretty easily to get to 44. But that's just a quick mid-market recap, guys. I hope you guys all are doing well. Again, stay patient, wait for your spots, watch a couple of stocks, and when those stocks confirm, don't be afraid to take your plays. Just make sure you know where you're going to exit on these stocks. I'll see you guys all in the next video.